Okay, so when we talked about natural killer cells, I mentioned MHC1 platforms. So we need to talk a little bit further about those things. So MHC platforms, that means, or they're called major histocompatibility complexes, or MHC. So MHC platforms are proteins. Okay, so they're proteins that are made. So these are proteins that are made in the endoplasmic reticulum. So if you think of the endoplasmic reticulum, you should remember that that's where proteins are formed together after being produced in the ribosome. So the protein will go into the endoplasmic reticulum and it will, fold it and do whatever to it to put it in its functional form. So in the endoplasmic reticulum, that's where these MHC platforms are made. So if we have a cell, anything that you consume or eat or whatever is going to, or can get into your cell or cells, and these things, whether it's something good or something bad, like a virus or a bacteria or something like that, these things are going to be displayed on your plasma membranes through these things called MHC. So if you have a cell and let's say, something, some bug or whatever, got into the cell, maybe it was, endocytosed into the cell and, was in this vesicle, this weird thing. What happens is the vesicle tries to digest it, right? And what it does is it just breaks it down. So it breaks it down into its little protein parts. And once that's done, it goes into the endoplasmic reticulum where the MHC are, and this thing, let's say we'll go into the ER here, and this thing then, these protein parts go in there and they are matched up and displayed on an MHC1 platform. Once it's matched up in the endoplasmic reticulum, then it goes to the Golgi or whatever, but eventually then it goes to the plasma membrane where it's sort of embedded in the vesicle coming from the endoplasmic reticulum, and then it is exocytosed to the plasma membrane where it is embedded there. I guess that was a different color, sorry. So embedded there, and now it's on the plasma membrane displayed on this MHC1 platform. So basically, all nucleated cells contain MHC1 proteins. So all nucleated cells. So that means all cells other than red blood cells. So no red blood cells, because red blood cells don't have a nucleus. So MHC1, this is how, white blood cells kind of, know, as we talked about with the natural killer cells, this is how it knows it's you or not you. So fortunately, MHC1 are not on red blood cells, and that is why we can donate blood. If red blood cells had MHC1, we would not be able to donate blood, because our donated blood to that another person would be rejected because of the MHC1. Okay, because one person's MHC1 is not going to be the same as another person's MHC1 unless they're an identical twin. Okay, and that's why it's so hard to donate organs, because it's, you have to go through all kinds of testing and to compare the MHC1 proteins with the donor and the receiver or the recipient to see how closely they match, and they have to be fairly closely matched. And if they're not as closely matched as possible, it won't work. And even then, you have to take special drugs so that you don't reject the organ. Okay, so that is MHC1 platforms. There is another MHC. So the other MHC is MHC2. And MHC2 platforms are extremely important in the acquired immune system. So that's why I want to talk about them now before we really get into talking about the adaptive immune system. So there are 3 types of cells that contain MHC2. So the first type are B lymphocytes. The second type of cell is a dendritic cell. And the third type is a macrophage. And collectively, these 3 types of cells are antigen presenting cells, or APCs. Okay. Antigen presenters they present antigens to cells in the adaptive immune system, so T cells, and that activates them. It activates lymphocytes. It activates both T cells and B cells. So again, only these 3 types of cells have MHC2. Okay. Dendritic cells have both. All right. All other nucleated cells, all nucleated cells have MHC1 proteins. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's going to be very important as we are getting into talking about the acquired or adaptive immune system.